Good afternoon, good evening, and uh, good day to everyone, wherever, whichever part of the world you are. I am really happy and excited to have one of my best guests, which I finally was able to invite on my podcast, Mr. Saurav Bhattacharya. Saurav, thank you so much for coming, and we are really excited. And since I have so much to discuss with you, I knew it will not be able to cover it in just one podcast. So I have kept two part of podcast with you. So hopefully you will be able to give us the time requested, and if you see the number of attendees who have already signed up for this program, you are already a popular figure, so people are expecting a lot from you. This one as well as the next one. Another thing is the next podcast. This one we will be discussing about cybersecurity, privacy, uh, and how we are able to build trust with the stakeholders, specifically in the area of healthcare, in the area of expertise which you represent. In the next podcast, uh, all right, the next part I'll keep it kind of a suspense for right now. At the end of the session, end of the overall session of this podcast, I will announce what will be the title of that podcast for the sake of our audience. So, Saurabh, thank you again for joining us. Let me start off with giving a quick introduction about Saurav Bhattacharya. Most of you know him. For those who do not, Saurav Bhattacharya is a prominent figure in cybersecurity and digital privacy with a rich career uh, right now going at Microsoft. He's currently serving there as a technical lead. He has spearheaded numerous innovative solutions and digital transformation projects, which particularly focuses on cybersecurity, fraud prevention, data privacy. Saurav, in his education background, he holds an MTech and BTech in computer science and engineering from IIT Kharagpur. As the founder of an online security firm, Supercharge Plus, he brings a wealth of knowledge and leadership qualities in addition to his role at Microsoft. Saurav is also the president of the New World Foundation, TNWF. It's a non-profit dedicated to fostering global innovations through education, research, and collaboration. He is also the editor-in-chief of International Journal of Global Innovations and Solutions, which is called IJGIS. Just remember, for the audience, remember these two words. I will mention about this at the end of the podcast as well. So at IJGIS, he oversees the publication of groundbreaking research in areas such as environmental sustainability, digital security, and social equity. And just for the knowledge of the audience, I am myself, thanks to Saurav, I am myself Senior Vice President, Ethics Compliance Standards at TNWF, as well as I am part of the board of editors at the IGGIS as well. So thanks to Saurav's brainchild and then very little contribution from my end, we have been able to make it success in the short term since it has been launched earlier this year. Saurav's contribution to the field are extensive and include several patents, influential publications, on topics like blockchain and electronic healthcare. He has done work on botnet detection and other technologies. His work has earned numerous accolades, including the prestigious Globee Gold Award for Cybersecurity, the AVA Digital Award. He is a prolific author. I can vouch for that. I can vouch for that. He is a prolific author. In fact, he is the inspiration which has made me start writing and kind of to follow his footsteps. He is a prolific author, researcher. He has published papers that explore the intersection of cybersecurity with other emerging technology. But today we'll focus only on healthcare. His book, Cyber Secure, was one of the best sellers earlier this year. His expertise encompass a wide range of technical array of technical skills, including web applications, data engineering, full stack development, software architecture design. His leadership roles, we'll talk about it uh, later on at the TNWF, IGGIS, as well as the online security firm Supercharge Plus. It's need no words. His commitment to drive global innovations and enhancing cybersecurity measures reflect through his work. And through his multifaceted career, Saurav continues to be a thought leader and driving force in the field of cybersecurity and digital transformation. Saurav, thank you so much for joining us podcast. Uh, so we'll well right into the topic here. Let me ask again. Given my background on, I know cybersecurity, it's a vast topic. I think so. Just a couple of days back, we had a breach of a potential big breach of lots of people's data was kind of compromised, personal data through the social security offices were alerted. So cybersecurity is kind of a sensitive topic. It's a very important topic, but often organizations kind of keep them on the sides. They focus
Mhm.
on innovations, technology. Off late, everyone is focused on AI, how to automate stuff, how to like bring in technology to make it robotic outcomes and all, but data security, data privacy is often neglected. So you have seen, you have written so much about it, you have experienced it firsthand as well, in your existing role as well as in your other research work. So how has the role of cybersecurity evolved in digital healthcare space over the last few years? We'll want to learn from you and hear from you. What has been your experience in terms of the evolution of cybersecurity?
Thank you, Fardeen. And first of all, really appreciate your amazing intro that you gave for me. I really appreciate that. I don't think it sounds probably amazing, but I don't know if it is. Let's
It's
see
a fact.
from our work. And thank you to you for your contributions as well. I really appreciate your joining our New World Foundation, our journal, and you're doing amazing leadership work there, including this podcast. So I really appreciate all your hard work and your initiative as well. Thank you
Yeah,
for that.
thanks, Saurav. Just to remind the audience, you rightly mentioned, this podcast is sponsored by the New World Foundation. It's part of one of the many things New World Foundation does. We'll talk about it in detail, but Saurav, thanks for bringing that point here as well.
No
Yeah,
problem.
good. Please.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No worries. So yeah, you talked about cybersecurity in healthcare, how it has evolved in healthcare. So healthcare in general, if you look at it, has really gone from a pre-digital area to a digital area over the last, like even in our own lives, we have seen that from paper prescriptions to moving into digital prescriptions and everything happening in digitally. We have seen in our own lives, we have experienced this shift that has happened, and it has continued to happen over the last decade, a little more than a decade or so, especially in the US at least.
Yes.
And because of this, the data that is all digitally stored needs to be now protected, and that is why cybersecurity concerns are now in the digital healthcare space. And
Mhm.
obviously, we have AI and other things that are also getting enabled through this data that we have all digitally. And also, this AI integration and the force to get more data into the digital space and the more digitalization of the healthcare also increases the vulnerability of that data, of that patient data, of patient healthcare data. And that's why we have also more breaches happening. And as you said, even last a few days back, and even I can talk about one in February 2024, very major healthcare breach happened in Change Healthcare for the
Yep.
United Group. 6 TB of PII was stolen, claims
Mhm.
were backlogged, and patient access to care was actually impacted. And to recover, like Change Healthcare, they did their ransomware recovery that they had in place, but they had a lot of things that were not in place, like the best practices that cybersecurity, a good cybersecurity posture in the modern world should have, like multi-factor authentication and other things that we can talk about, were not in place. So that really shows, and as you said, that the businesses really, they do not give the business concerns. Cybersecurity comes out like as a side thing
Absolutely.
for businesses, but more and more as we see these digitalizations happening in the current world, the importance for cybersecurity will keep on increasing, and it needs to increase if we are going to continue to have innovations that allow for different kind of softwares and other kind of AI and other kind of innovations to keep happening. Cybersecurity needs to support that and be in abreast with that in order to for that to happen in a proper way.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the detailed response, Saurabh. Just like you rightly mentioned, specifically in the digital healthcare space, patient data breaches are one of the important things. To bring that point forward and continue with the discussion on that point, we have observed like the patient data breaches can happen in multiple ways. We have seen like threats like ransomware attacks, and there are phishing attacks targeting the population. We have insider threats as well. We are coming from within the provider networks, etc. Specifically target the electronic health record. The recent attack which happened is sold the people's personal data, which was stored in the SSN or the SSA or websites portals. But specifically, what happens is, especially the patient data, the electronic health records, despite the HIPAA and the other guidelines which are there, this is very valuable data. Often this information is sold across on dark web, because the researchers and others who do not want to go through the legal and genuine route, they try to buy or purchase this data elsewhere. So from your perspective, what do you think is, like, if we classify within ransomwares and phishings and all these insider threats and other different classification, you are the expert here, you can have more. I just knew a few on my fingertips, but we'll
Yeah.
need to want to hear from you. What are the most significant cybersecurity threats which the digital healthcare system faces in the current situation?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right, actually, by pointing out phishing and ransomware. Those are the most relevant and the most numerous that we see, most impactful, at least,
Mhm.
of cyber attacks that we have. And also there are other kind of threats like insider threats for sure, but there is also the thing about technology being behind. Again, bringing back the fact that the technology and the innovation that we have around us is sometimes lacking behind the amount of technology and innovations that the hackers and the attackers, the adversaries, they come up with. So that is a problem for sure, and that gap needs to be filled. And the businesses, as these threats and these breaches are occurring,
Mhm.
sadly, this is the only way they are now realizing the real need for digital security to
Absolutely.
be paramount. And we need to learn our lessons, everybody, all the healthcare industry, all industries, but healthcare industry mostly needs to learn its lesson and start to innovate, and start to not only innovate but also keep the responsibility, patient trust at the top of their mind, and go after all the cybersecurity assessments, cybersecurity initiatives, cybersecurity modernizations. If their systems are falling behind, what can we do? They learn from the rest of the industry, technical tech industry, and actually get abreast. And there are a few things that they can really do that will make a huge amount of difference, like multi-factor authentication, cybersecurity audits, assessments, and training of personnel to understand the importance of patient data, electronic health data, and the correct protocols that they should follow in order for these systems to stay secure and compliant with the regulations as well.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Saurav, for answering that question. Before we go on, we have lots of questions to ask. I have a list of questions as well, but apart from that, like the new points which you bring up in your responses, it kind of creates some new ideas for me to ask questions on sake of behalf of the audience. I had written one of the articles in D Zone where I mentioned about the 3M ransomware attacks. You rightly mentioned ransomwares. Apart from others, they pose one of the biggest challenges. So the 3M ransomware attack of 2022-23, where it was fortunately caught at the right moment. Otherwise, the impact would have been devastating. It's called 3 a.m. because the ransomware attack evolved at 3 a.m. In the night, and it started impacting the systems. There was a breach within and compromise. It started from a small compromise when a very innocuous email was shared across or responded to by one of the employees, but it kind of became monstrous overnight. Unfortunately, it was caught at the right time. Otherwise, but it did eventually did impact the data across more than 140 hospitals in the United States. It could have been had global implications. That's one example. But before we go into detail, it will just for the sake of understanding for audience, because we know people who will be listening to us, they might be from healthcare, non-healthcare, technology. So let's discuss one example. You gave the example of Change Healthcare, the
Yes.
breach happened in 2024, or any other example which you think which will be very apt to fit into the description of our subject of the podcast today. So let's give an example how it's impacted the patient trust and what was specifically done to evolve from it to make the system, entire healthcare system, more cyber secure? Any example you want to share across with the audience in detail?
Sure, absolutely. So one example, I'll give a major example, the Change Healthcare breach that happened
Absolutely.
February 2024. And as I said earlier, there was a lot of PII data that
Mhm.
was stolen. That and This PII data, and the thing is, the timeline was like February 2024, late February, they had the breach. They figured it out after by March 2nd, they figured it out, and they made a quick announcement that okay, we had a breach, and they confirmed this breach.
Mhm.
But the problem that is, and sadly, the thing is that about these breaches that are happening recent times, the the response to that breach is not up to mark. So I'll
Mhm.
give you an example. So this breach February 2024, right now it's August, today is August 16th. Still we do not know the technical details of what went wrong, what were the
Obviously.
vulnerabilities because of which the breach happened, right?
Mhm.
So breach happened in February, March 2nd. They confirmed the breach, but they did not give any details. They were doing their internal processing. So right now, any vulnerability that existed in the systems, all healthcare organization systems are still vulnerable for
Mhm.
that same, right? Then you have April 8th. I'm just giving a small timeline. The
Sure,
Senate
sure.
Judiciary Subcommittee on Privacy, Technology and Law, they wrote to the United Health Group CEO, Andrew
Mhm.
Whitty, that they had the group which had taken over the Change Healthcare hospital system,
Mhm.
about the for to get the details of the attack. And
Okay.
then April 16th, they had asked them to attend a hearing,
Mhm.
but nobody showed up.
Oh gosh.
And at this point, we still have the details not available to us. We do not know what are the technical issues that might have happened on unauthorized
Mhm.
access. We just know there was some unauthorized access.
Mhm.
But other than that, why it happened and how did it go past all the cybersecurity systems that hopefully were in place, and how did the attacker reach that internal system is it's very alarming, to say the least. So we are still learning about these things. So
Mhm.
one thing they did as Change Healthcare, they did as for patient trust.
Mhm.
um, for patient trust, they did give them communication and fiscal support. They did give them identity protection for next 2 years. By
Correct.
the way, this is actually impacted the entire US. So the
Mhm.
audience, I would request them to go to changecybersupport.com and get get a look whether your details were impacted or not. I'll give you the link after the chat. You can put it in the
That will be helpful.
description.
Yeah, that's an important message you mentioned. Like there might be lots of people. See, even the recent attack which happened on the social security network, I was not even aware for at least 2 3 days. So people, like, we are busy in our lives so much, so we need to be aware and keep ourselves abreast of whatever is the recent news happenings, especially in the cyber security world. So that, because we are the first parties who can be impacted directly. So that's a very good suggestion which you mentioned, so people will be looking forward. So if you can share the link at the end of the podcast, it will be really helpful. So sort of continue on that, you mentioned, like, and it was this is a one classic example uh, where we see, like, the organizations, they are kind of not serious about cybersecurity. We see the timelines. You rightly mentioned about the timeline. The impact happened at the end of February and it went all the way till mid of April. No one showed up at the hearing as well. So that shows like how much organizations are serious. And healthcare is one space where we have a different scenario. I'm just giving you one example. If, let's say, a cyber security or a data breach happens at some other organization, let's say a banking organization, financial organization, they can actually shut down the entire system, uh, recover it, go into the back mode, try to fix the system, and then come back. We cannot do that in healthcare. It's currently on the smart connections, the interoperability things which are there in place. There are hundreds of devices which are connected to the central database, the central system, the network. They're all on this thing, connecting each other's, exchanging the patient information, the data over the net. So we cannot really shut down the system. Just imagine, a, surgery is going on, the doctor is looking at the screen. for the vitals of the patient, and let's say a data breach happened, then we cannot just shut down the system. So there has to be some other things which needs to happen, some other measures which these organizations needs to undertake. So my question then comes around, right, comes from that situation is, especially in the healthcare space, how can we strike a better balance in terms of a robust cybersecurity? At the same time, we ensure there is no disruption in the services in healthcare. There is no interruption of the seamless patient experience which
Yeah,
the healthcare services provide.
absolutely, absolutely. So that is really a good question.
Mhm.
And you're basically talking about how to be more proactive, probably, too, because
Absolutely,
the
absolutely.
reactions are not that viable for healthcare.
Yeah,
So,
just to like restate that, it's kind of a balance between a proactive approach as well as a reactive approach, because often we have to have some reactive approach as well. The proactive measures needs to be in place as well. So probably the audience would like to hear both kind of a balance between both what the organizations, healthcare organizations can do.
yes, yes. So, let's talk about the proactive ones. So,
Mhm.
you have MFA, multi-factor authentication.
Yep.
That is one thing that everybody should, that reduces, that has, the recent studies have been done that cyber attacks are reduced by 90% by just making that one thing, multi-factor authentication. So
And often
everywhere,
we as users are very lazy to enable multi-factor authentication. Say like, hey, the system, let's save our password so that one click we can just go on. We don't want to go undergo that multi-factor authentication as well, right? So
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Continue, please. Talk about it. I was
yeah,
talking
that's
about my
a,
experience as well. Yeah.
no, you're completely right. And that's why we need usable security, like
Mhm.
single sign-on. That's a
True, true,
that's
true.
a proper way to do security usably. And then biometrics, that is
Mhm.
another usable security. If you if an organization will bring these types of protocols and these types of systems in their systems, then your cybersecurity will improve because, as you said, security and usability needs to be balanced because we sometimes don't want to turn on MFA. Well, we can maybe turn on biometrics. That probably will be something that we would want to do instead of having to do something like strong passwords or
Mhm.
which are not that secure.
True.
And then you also have communications that needs to happen, like the communications between the 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 patient's data and the provider. You need to have transparent communication as to what kind of data you are sharing with the provider, so that provider are in complete understanding of, okay, this is the patient data, this is the responsibility I have. And that kind of that urges them to be more responsible and be more open to opt into secure controls and things like that. And also, we need training with protocols and practices. We Training and education, obviously, the more training and education we give to the providers as to the um, kind of issues that might happen, the impact of the cyber attacks, and what actually happens when the proper security controls are not followed, that probably can bring out a kind of a solution, or at least some measures, some proactive measures that can help us against these cyber attacks, because many of them in these cases, as I said, rely on these not being met. These
Mhm.
technologies have not been implemented or enforced in some form.
True.
There is the advanced tech you can use, like AI and machine learning we were talking about earlier. Those also we can bring in to do advanced analysis and to understand cyber attacks more deeply, and understand where you can get those informations and data, and uh, try to break them before they reach the system. But those are all proactive approaches. Reactively, we have ransomware recovery, we have incident response. These are different kinds of cybersecurity best practices
Mhm.
that have been there but not enforced as much. So the more we enforce those guidelines and best practices that we already know about, that will help us be more secure and be abreast with the cyber security hackers and the adversaries that are always looking for a loophole or always looking for somewhere to find a vulnerability and attack.
Sure.
So
Thanks for answering that question. So, sort of, my next question, I want to like you kind of summarized and mentioned almost everything about what initiative the organizations can take to make themselves cyber secure in general. I want to like go a little bit deeper into the healthcare setup. So, patient data privacy is one of the main focus areas, apart from the overall system, which is under threat with these the cyber goons or whatever the term we use. Probably you are the better expert defining that. So, when we say specifically about data privacy for patient health, the PIIs, the patient data information, the patient health information, the PHIs. Do we have any key strategies which are different than the overall generic cybersecurity strategies which we plan or we can implement? I can think about a few things. You rightly mentioned about training, audits. You mentioned about AI-driven cyber threat detections, like some of the proactive approaches which you mentioned. But in general, specifically from patient data privacy perspective, what do you suggest or what do you think are the key strategies? Probably you can give a very brief answer to summarize what you just mentioned, specifically from the perspective of data privacy, patient health information.
Yes, sure. So data, if we as yeah, we're talking about the digitalization of healthcare, and the more and more
Yes.
patient data is now getting into digital systems,
True.
databases. So the way to protect those data would be, first of all, encrypt all the data, encrypting at rest and in transit, so that any access, that unauthorized access, can also have a barrier before they can access the data. You have obviously access, to be able to reduce access and keep minimal access, only required access for the people, stakeholders that are involved in accessing the data for carrying out their roles.
Hmm.
So strict access controls, two-factor authentication, already mentioned that one, audits and trainings. I mentioned, but when we look at data protection, the best practices are quite common that we you
Hmm.
have for data protection across all industries, but the enforceability and the will for the business leaders to actually go through and actually have those encrypted are more required due to the regulations in healthcare, and absolutely for regularity compliance, but also for being secure and actually even having a mindset in which the organizations go beyond what is in regulated regulations and actually proactively start looking for how to make the data system more secure and protect the data, and always be in the cutting edge of R&D. Those are some things that a healthcare organization can go ahead and do. That would be a great investment, return on investment.
Sure, thanks, Saurabh. So I think so. Those are very key and wonderful points which you mentioned. Just to add one more thing, we often sometimes we talk about proactive measures, sometimes we talk about reactive measures. From proactive perspective, often organizations I shouldn't use the word overdo because data privacy is of utmost importance. But what happens is, in order to make the system more secure, ensuring data privacy of patients, this usability of the system, the user centricity is lost. I'll just give one example where we have the patient portal. So what happens is the multi-factor, two-factor authentication, some other different questions. It kind of uh, ends up making it like more complicated in terms of specifically the senior population who are not really well versed with these multiple technology and data. I'm sorry, the security compliance related issues. And I'll not use the word compliance. The security measures which these organized the healthcare systems they embed as part of their for our access to the patient data, even by the patients themselves. So there is a concept called privacy by design. This word kind of stuck with me, so I wanted to have that discussion with me, where we try to build into a culture of or kind of maintain a balance between a robust system as well as a usable system. So the measures, the privacy, the data protection measures are also in place at the same time, not really compromising on the usability. So let's talk about like the privacy by designs from your perspective as a let's assume like you are the cybersecurity expert, I am the healthcare organization. So if we have to collaborate and implement this privacy by design, what are the key things which we need to consider so that we don't compromise on the security, at the same time we don't compromise on the usability and the design aspect or the design principles as well.
Yeah. So yeah, you touched upon privacy by design, which is amazing concept, and especially important for healthcare
Mhm.
industry. And it starts with being proactive, right? So it
True.
starts with being proactive, and the most of the measures that we can do and should be doing probably are proactive by design. When you say by design, it basically means by default, right?
Mhm.
So privacy by default also is a similar concept, or the same concept in other words, that your privacy controls that are there in your patient portal that senior populations are using, they those controls should be privacy, highest privacy by default. So
Mhm.
if there is any information that they need to give for their particular procedure that they're having, some information, health records that somebody has asked for, some specialist might have asked for, they when before they do that, there should be a clear um, communication to them saying that you are actually sending this information about your health record through this channel and through all these things to this different provider, and are you sure you want to do this,
Yeah, like
right?
multiple checkposts or multiple flags before they're able to share that data, because they might not be aware. They might accidentally end up sharing that data to an authorized person, or provide be able to provide unauthorized. So those are really very very good points. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So transparency is the key
Hmm.
to have patient trust, and get that patient trust such that they see security as something valuable for them instead of it being something annoying for them. And end to end, and then once that we have that set up, then we have that end to end security. Obviously that is required as well. All your data should be encrypted in transit and at rest, and then you are using the correct protocols, HTTPS layer or the secure protocols. So the infrastructure also needs to support that.
Absolutely. So, Saurav, thanks for answering that question. I'll move on to the next topic, which is one of my favorite topics about telehealth, telemedicine, tele everything in healthcare.
Yeah.
So we have seen that telehealth services evolve a lot in the last few years, specifically post COVID or during the COVID pandemic as well, where people were not able to go personally. They started getting on phone or telephonic consultations from doctors. I have been using it for the last 1.5 years, really very frequently. It's really helpful, really convenient, but often comes with the challenge of, because you have to log into the system, you have to provide your health information, you have to provide your personal data as well. So how does the setup of telehealth really differ? So from the perspective of patient as well as from the perspective of the providers or the physicians or the doctors who are logging into the system, what are the unique challenges the cybersecurity setup or cyber threats they present for a telehealth kind of a scenario?
Yep, telehealth, rightly pointed out, is one of those innovations in the digitalization that we have seen in healthcare.
Mhm.
And we need to support the innovation, but it comes with its own security challenges.
True.
And because of that, even the vendor that you choose for telehealth, like as
Mhm.
a patient, if I am actually going to a
The hosting
provider,
platform, right?
for hosting platform,
Yeah.
what is the telehealth provider they use, and then
Mhm.
as a patient going forward and looking into it, that is this a secure telehealth platform that they are using, and if not, can I talk to my provider and say that, hey, your telehealth
Absolutely.
provider platform is not that secure, or go to other provider. You make the decision there
Correct. You
about
are
how.
compliant or not to the local regulations, the HIPAA regulations. You check the history as well, right?
Absolutely,
Before. Yeah.
absolutely. So
Mhm.
those the platform itself needs to be secure,
Okay.
and that is a responsibility for both the patient and the provider. Providers also need to talk to their management and ensure that, hey, we are using this patient platform,
Mhm.
the telehealth platform. The data are the data that are coming to us secure or not. That has to
Mhm.
be a concern raised within the organization as well. um, Obviously the HIPAA regulations come with it, the encryptions, all that comes with it, ensuring that. But sometimes there's a lack of education about
Yep.
folks not understanding that uh, what is the trade-off that they are taking by
Mhm.
actually going into a telehealth. It might seem very convenient to, like, hey, I can just have a doctor at my fingertips,
Mhm.
but sometimes it comes with its own security challenges, privacy challenges.
True.
So giving the patient a right amount of education when they sign up for the telehealth, that, hey, this is the things that you're signing up, and not a long list of terms of use. Very simple, understandable thing, that they
Mhm.
understand that data is being taken, due to this platform and how it is being used. And once they understand that, once they're educated, then we actually can look for that the right balance that we need for something like this to thrive, like this innovation of telehealth. and
Absolutely.
and then this is a continuous process, because every time there will be a new innovation, and then you have to keep on doing the assessments, the cybersecurity assessments and audits. Need
Mhm.
to keep bringing the experts in and doing those assessments, and to ensure what kind of correct protocols and practices are being in place, where's the gap, and that is very important as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, Saurabh. Let me go to another topic, like the move on to the next topic, which is kind of connected to the telehealth services. So, telehealth, we are looking at the situation where, say, I'm a doctor, you are the patient. We get onto a system either through video call or through audio calls. We interact with each other. We exchange information. You share across your scan reports, your blood reports, etc. On the net, or probably your past patient or the health history with me. I analyze and provide you consultation. That involves transfer of data packets, files across the network. Now, here we are talking about simple uh, communication apps like WhatsApp or any other things, where they keep pointing about your data is encrypted, your data is encrypted. We can keep getting that messages, your data is end to end encrypted, so that
Yep.
anyone who tries to access the data in between, they will not be able to decipher the data they without the specific detailed encryption key which they should have before they will be able to utilize or meaningfully extract the data out of that information. We
Mhm.
have seen the evolution of blockchain technologies where data they are getting transferred in small packets and with specific encryption key. Again, I'm not the expert in that area, but like based on the healthcare expertise or the healthcare digital transformation, which we typically when new organizations come to us for digitalization. In my experience as well, I can give you an example where we had an organization who are working on actually manual systems where they would format the paper claims. They will get the paper claims through mails. They will open the mails. They will be able to write that information. So when we digitalize their entire system, there were people who are working for last 35, 40 years in that organization. So the digitalization, the automation, and taking everything on the electronic channel was kind of new to them. So they were really apprehensive, saying like, "Hey, you are passing my information, my claims information from one department to other." We are talking about within the network only. But when the situation happens, when this data is specifically in the telehealth situation, you are sitting in Oregon, I'm sitting here in Texas. We share across the information across the net. I'm sorry, you're in Washington, right? Not in Oregon. So we transfer the data across from that to here. We are not talking about distance here, but we are talking about the vulnerability of the network. So we talked about the platform, we talked about the portals, we talked about accessibility, usability, the concept about the how the organizations can transform themselves, integrate the culture of security, data security as one of the highest priorities. What are the proactive and post-active things which we can do? Now let's talk about the data which is in transit, which, let's say, once it leaves my system and on the way transit to the organization system or your system, like let's say if we are the patient provider setup. So what happens in between? How does the data encryption really helps in safeguarding the sensitive health information? Let's talk about that one, that situation.
Yes, absolutely. So encryption is built. The internet is really built upon encryption, like
Hmm.
the new internet, Internet 2.0, built upon encryption, HTTPS. Everywhere we see certificates are there. Whenever you visit a site, you will have to always be able to see that there is a SSL certificate that is verified by an authority. So encryption has become a common part of our lives, but we have emerging technologies like blockchain. We have different types of encryption. There's a new kind of encryption which is homomorphic encryption, in which there is no decryption actually happening.
Okay.
It's one way functions are used, and there are actually innovations happening in this case, that in this area of there is research and innovations are happening in secure multi-party computation. So the encryption itself is divided into several parts. Those several parts are encrypted, decrypted separately, and then unionized at the last of the process. So that just helps you to give that more, you can localize the data to one place, and you don't have to move the data to another place for it to get
Mm.
encrypted. Whatever can be done encryption on that place, you can just keep it there. And then you can unionize the different keys, so there's not one key or multiple keys to actually be able to decrypt a particular um, plain text or electronic information, health information in this case. And these are the kind of innovations that are happening. And then decentralized data analysis also is kind of that to limit the network vulnerability that you pointed out,
Mm.
of having the data transfer happening, and how the data transfer can, and we can talk about this more as later as well, to how data localization is one of the ways that even the regulatory space is starting to wake up to and understand that networks can be vulnerable, and those need to be regulated as well.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. Just to like help understand the audience, what you mentioned about the encryption and decryption happening separately, independent of each other, and then unionizing all of them to access the data. I'll just probably correct me if I'm wrong. It's typical like back in India when we used to receive those credit cards. They will be outside the IT organization selling those credit cards to us. We file the application. The credit card used to come through one envelope. After a couple of days, the key to unlock the credit card used to come afterwards, and then that was not sufficient. Then we have to utilize both the information, give a call to the number which was there on the back of the credit card, and then we will the authentication happens. They ask us few questions, the security questions which we set up on the portal. So these one, two, three, four steps, then our credit card gets open, and then we are able to use it more securely. So right now, like what I have seen in the US, like since I came here, I have multi credit cards as well. Here we have like you just give a call on the cell phone, on the number which is given. They ask you a couple of questions and press a button, tit, 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 and then your credit card is like unlocked. I think so. Back there in 15 years, 20 years back, we had used to have more more secure protocols in place, although they were more physical features rather than any electronic features. But I think so that is kind of a concept which is going kind of getting built into, right, when you talk about encryption happening in a separate channel, decryption happening in a separate channel. And it's like multiple scenarios where all these encryption decryption keys and the protocols which are getting combined to get the data access. So I know this is more so to prevent the hackers from accessing the data on transit. And although like we talked about the data at rest earlier, but when the data is on transit, this is more to secure it. But as you said, like the technology is evolving, so it looks like challenging for us, but this is all happening in a fly, right, on motion, on the go. It's like nothing like there is a lag of data transit between one party to other because of these multiple security protocols which are implemented. I think so. Is my understanding correct here?
Yeah. So it is all fast and everything, but the
Mm.
thing is that again, this digitalization has been for going on for decades, and
Mm.
different places have been in different stages of enforcing and actually adopting the right best practices. As you said, in India, you
Mm.
have better practices than in the United States in general. Like even in the
We used
credit
to have.
card space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the credit card space, for example,
Mm.
I remember when I went to India a few years back, my father had to pay for something, and this was right when the credit card boom happened in India. I think a
Mm.
decade or two back,
Correct,
and
correct.
all credit card transactions needed an OTP, right?
Yes.
Without OTP,
Correct.
could not make a transaction. So
Mm.
that is one thing that was beginning, that was secure by design from
Mm. True.
India's regulators. They did a good job there. United States has been more flexible in this regard,
Mm.
but they are actually starting to see
Importance
the
of that,
importance
yes.
of it,
Yes.
the negative impact of not having that. So
Mhm.
those regulations are now catching up to it. So yeah, different places are in different regulatory, and the overall postures are different across, but
Mhm.
overall there is an understanding that yeah, these best practices need to get added and need to keep evolving and finding better ways to keep becoming more secure, and try to not only catch up to the bad guys, the adversaries, but actually be a step ahead of them. so that
True, true.
you are secure, truly secure and uh, proactively, if possible.
Thanks, sir. Yeah, these topics are so interesting. We keep giving one example, and something new pops up, and we start discussing our own situation and own life examples where we had similar situation. I know we are like 45 minutes into the podcast. We have lots of things to cover. I wanted to cover about things about regulatory compliance aspects, but I'll kind of skip that part. The HIPAA, the GDPR regulations, etc. Specifically, people in healthcare, they are kind of aware of that. We know these organizations, they keep themselves abreast of the technological changes, so whatever we discuss will be applicable in the regulatory space as well. So I'll probably skip and move to the next the section where we talk more about the transparency. You mentioned something about transparency in the whole cyber security setup, how we can build the I'll come to the core topic or the title of this podcast, how we can build patient trust in a typical digital healthcare platform. So what are the things which we need to have, like in terms of ensuring that the privacy policy in place are there in case of any breach happens, or even before a proactive measure is there, so that I as a patient, when I go log into a system, let's say I am purchasing a health insurance with XYZ health insurance provider. So what should I be looking in terms of ensuring that, okay, my data is safe, there is the system is transparent. So what these organizations can do to build the patient trust, to put it in a very simple word.
Yes, that is a very, very important and probably the most important thing that we all are looking for, to have that patient trust so that businesses can actually function.
Yeah.
And and the key, I would say, is to just let the patient be part of the story,
Hmm.
right? Have the patient, bring this patient
Communication, right?
communication
Yep.
and education and understanding them of the security, current security of the systems that they are using, and
Hmm.
adopting those security and making them and having them having ensuring that they have a cybersecurity mindset. There's a mindset of cybersecurity, like, okay, I'm right now, say, interacting with the interwebs, for example, right? The
Hmm.
internet. I'm interacting with a digital platform.
Hmm.
I need to be feeling that, okay, am I secure? Am I taking the right amounts of protocols? What right amount of protocols or practices? What are the things that I'm doing? Which are the systems that I'm interacting with? Are they secure? Right. So it starts with the patient, because, as you said earlier, patient centricity is also something that is increasing these days,
Correct,
and
correct.
also needs to be also put front and center, is the communication and the patient's engagement into the whole process, about them understanding that this is the system and being very completely transparent with them, like, this is the systems and these are the things that we have put in place, and these are the things we have not put in place, which is hopefully not too many things. And that 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 I think we should give the patient a benefit of the doubt, and give them the information that they need, and that is the way we build trust. Trust comes from transparency, right? So the other thing is also that we can do is the providers, that the patients are regularly the frontline people that they are they're contacting with when they come for a healthcare function. Even the providers need to be educated. They need to be held accountable, even, that
Hmm.
whether they are taking the right approach for their own patients. Are they looking out for their patients' security? Because that does also something that the provider should be accountable for. And that, if that is done, then patient trust will obviously improve, because the patient is then feeling secure about actually using some new system, not going to the doctor's office like they used to 10, 20 years back, but now
Hmm.
using telehealth things, but still feeling that same security and that same amount of patient engagement, that and
Hmm.
trust that any industry, but healthcare industry especially, needs.
Absolutely, those are good points, Saurav. I'll come back to the like touch upon the point on the communication aspect, which is one of the key aspects of, and one of the key aspects of building the patient trust, which is often lacking. I'll give an example of my parents. While my father is kind of catching up on the digital and the online practices, specifically in the area of healthcare services. My mom, she's kind of a little bit apprehensive, and whenever I keep asking, hey, why don't you use this kind of a thing? Why don't you create your own access and log into the system? So she said, like, no one tells me about that. So that's one of the things, like, especially these healthcare organizations, the healthcare service providers, the health insurance providers, they need to do is educate the patients, specifically in simple terms. And we're talking about the senior citizens, the Medicaid, and the Medicare population here in United States specifically. Although they have access to technology on hand, we have the cell phones which are kind of functioning about everything. They can provide you access on the within the click of the buttons through your fingertips to any portal, any information. But I'm just talking about that one example. So I keep talking to my mom saying, hey, you gave the blood test the other day. So she said, like, I have to go to the hospital today to pick up my reports. I said, why do you need to go? Just get the information on the website. You create your patient access on their portal. They are online, and you can just download the report from there rather than driving across like 15 kilometers in India and then picking up the reports from there. So that she keeps telling, like, I don't know, no one tells me about. When I went to the hospital, they didn't tell me about that. When I have the insurance services with the insurance provider, they didn't tell me you have access to online system as well. So with the younger population, I can understand they kind of, they are inquisitive, they want to do everything online, most of the stuff. But specifically the specific population who are not really well versed. So where does, like, effective from your perspective and keeping a system cyber secure, as well as building the overall patient trust, how does communication in ensuring cyber security measure are in place, is an important factor in kind of building the overall patient trust? What is your thought process? What is your opinion about that?
So yeah, it starts. My opinion is it starts with the patient. If the patient is saying something, we need to listen to the patient. If
Mhm.
they have
Patient
concerns
centricity.
about, right, patient centricity,
Mhm.
right? So if your mom, for example, she has maybe trepidations about using the online form because what
Mhm.
is this? I don't know. It's not familiar. That is completely like that is something that the designers and the program managers of these softwares, they need to listen to them, and that includes usability and security. If they are
Mhm.
not feeling secure in sharing their data into different device or something like that, instead of getting it hand to hand from their provider, they that is a security gap that we need to fill. Yes, it is convenient, and the younger folks, we have all almost like brought up in this IT industry, like IT, the online culture. We all of us are some of us are millennials, some of us Gen X. All of them know how to use a computer from our childhood, but our parents are from a generation where they don't understand this computer thing, and they are more trepidatious about using this computer, and especially for something like healthcare. That is
Mhm.
like the last thing. If there's something has to be adopted, probably the last thing will be the healthcare in senior citizens, and that is the biggest challenge that we have, is senior citizens actually being very familiar and very confident in actually using these systems to do the things that they need to do, and very naturally feeling very natural about it,
Yep.
as natural as in person. And
Yep.
that is the goal, obviously. And yeah, and that starts with the patient's education,
True.
giving them the controls that they need, giving them the education that they need, the information that they need, and in a way that is helpful to them.
Mhm.
that because we don't want to force them to use a technology, because it's not technology for technology's sake. It is actually technology for the good of humanity. And
No,
if
absolutely.
humanity, yeah, so that's something that. So yeah, clear explanations about what is the system, what are the controls they have. Going back to the transparent system, understanding, okay, this is the system, this is how it is happens. Even basic understanding of how a computer system works.
Mhm.
Like send something on a computer, it goes over the network wire to some different hospital, they open it on their screen, then they get a
Yep.
approve button or things like that. Even some things like simple things like that would really help them understand what is happening with my data when I give it out. It's
Correct.
not going to the cloud or some place, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's one of the very very simple examples is, like, rather than we often see, like, specifically the hospitals and the things, especially this health insurance system which is set up in most of the new world as well as the developing world as well. They give you a ton of documentation. Who has time to read that documentation? And it's better to like create a small simple video, a user centric video saying, okay, this is what you need to do, showcase the screenshots. We did that exactly with when we were digitalizing the healthcare setup of some of the organizations which they were working for 35 plus years on the paper, on the old system, on those 386 and 586 computers which were there, still typing, still connected to the .NET printers and all those things. So we had a challenging time, but that's what we did. We created user-centric videos for the people who are working behind the desk, those people who were actually managing the system. So that really helped. Uh, I just want to like add one point here, or probably seek your inputs on that is. Uh, how what the patients can do from their aspect, like how can patients play a proactive role in being ensuring that everything is cyber secure. I know we just have a few minutes to go. After this I'll just ask one more question and then we'll kind of wind up. Just from patients perspective, what is the active role or proactive role patients can play or the end users can play, to put it in generic, to
Yes.
ensure like the system is cyber secure?
Yes. So absolutely. So one is multi-factor authentication, right?
Mm-hmm.
Strong passwords. Always use a strong password, not the minimum strong, but actually it's the strongest password that you can manage.
Yep, yep.
Um, get educated, get understanding of the systems that you use, become more
Mm-hmm.
aware of cybersecurity in general. Choose secure platforms. If your provider is actually not using a secure platform, consider asking them to use a secure platform or change a provider if it comes to that. And uh, and try to monitor also monitor where is your what is happening to get ownership of your digital identity. Start to think about, okay, this is my digital self, this all this information is in the digital realm, it is my data, I need to protect it. And that's where the privacy things come up. Privacy understanding and privacy awareness needs to
Mm-hmm.
also be developed. So these are different things, starting with the smallest, but the last one is a little, I think, a little complicated,
Yep.
obviously. But
Mm-hmm.
more and more people are coming awaking to the fact that yes, there is a something called a digital identity, and it has real um, access over my assets.
True. So
So
rather than resenting it, kind of accepting it and kind of putting them in the daily practices to ensure, like from our perspective, at least the one initial perspective, we have the secure protocols in place from our perspective. Whatever the organization, whatever the network is doing, that's separate. But from our as an end user perspective, we have to take these measures as well, right?
yes, yes, absolutely,
Sure.
yes.
So sort of last question. I'll throw a few big words at you.
Okay.
I'll seek your help to integrate those words and give me a kind of comprehensive answer for the sake of our audience. I'm
Okay.
talking about AI driven cybersecurity measures. We are talking about blockchain. We are talking about user control access mechanism. We are talking about interoperability. We are talking about Internet of Medical Things. And we are talking about robotics automations. We are talking about actual physical robots as well within a hospital network. And then we talk about all these patients HIPAA, the patient privacy, data security, cyber security measures. What does future of digital healthcare look like from the perspective, very generic question, very uh, just I'll like to hear your perspective. What do you foresee as an integration of cybersecurity, privacy, digital technologies, digital healthcare, the AI driven situation scenarios and the AI driven technologies? What do you see or foresee in the next 5 years, 10 years down the line? How will the cyber secure digital healthcare environment look to us? Your perspective.
Yes. Yeah. And you brought AI to the picture even
Mhm.
before in the podcast, and I think AI is absolutely the most fast advancing field, and
True.
it will touch healthcare in terms of care providing. You might see patient personal care assistants, AI
Mhm.
assistants that are able to converse with a patient, and at least the administrative stuff of a healthcare setting could be automated through that way. And that's where you have that need that the cybersecurity folks and the experts and the organizations that are working to make these types of innovations, they need to come in and ensure that these systems are secure, they're private systems, the patient understands that what they are going to interact with, it is a software. It's not actually a person. It's actually a software that they have access to their patient records, and and get the trust that way instead of fooling them into trusting
Yep.
AI avatar. Seems like a
Mhm.
person that I'm talking to, but it's not actually the case. That it's actually the AI and software, and very intelligent software to, in that has access to all your information. Well, the information that you have given consent to, and understanding that, and ensuring the patient is okay with that, and using those consent management things, consent
Mhm.
management as well, how
Absolutely.
consent is stored and everything like that. So yeah, AI is absolutely going to be one of the foremost. Blockchain, as you said, is gaining ground slowly. It has some scalability issues because of
Mhm.
which it is not gaining ground as fast, and also the awareness, cybersecurity awareness that
Mhm.
folks, organizations, and industries have in general are slow to adopt that. You talked about IoT and medical devices. IoT and medical
Right.
devices. That's
Yeah.
another place that it's going very fast, and
Correct. Yeah.
that's also another place. That's another battlefield, or so to speak, for the cyber
Mhm.
attackers to come in, and the cybersecurity experts to figure out how to ensure that those data and the patient data and the infrastructure is secure in those devices as well. And that is why the bringing those experts in regularly is very important.
True.
So whatever innovation your organization is doing, do also have a regular assessment period, or some systems as that you do regular audits,
Mhm.
a security, or if not a security org, at least security champs that can come in and do an assessment, and actually have regular audits of the types of innovations happening, such that you're not being irresponsible
Absolutely.
with the innovations. So yeah, and then trainings. Obviously, every employee, no matter what role there is, their role is they should understand security is the topest priority,
Mhm.
and especially in healthcare industry, and also in all, security is the topmost priority.
True.
Training them, educating them, understanding the protocols if an incident happens, how to respond to that incident, how to get the data, recover the data, how to respond to an incident in general, having those training plans and those procedures, such that you're not left wondering what to do now. You have some protocols to follow in those rare cases, but really largely very hugely impactful, negatively impactful cases.
Yes.
Um, so all of these things will happen, need to actually happen. People hearing, please do also try to help us raise awareness,
Yep. Yep.
this is, we were trying to do this as well to raise the awareness of cybersecurity, and we talked about the different breaches that have happened and how they could be potentially prevented if we had the proper cybersecurity best practices in place. So people are kind of slowly waking up to it, and it's just
True.
a matter of us to continue to raise awareness, continue to do patient education wherever
Mhm.
possible, talking to even your senators, even your providers, talking about regulation. I'm talking about regulations, and the government as well, because it finally, at the end of the day, if it is not law, nobody kind of follows it, right? That is
Just
the least last common denominator that
Absolutely.
needs to also
No,
happen.
very, very, very enlightening thoughts and your opinions on the subject, Saurav. Thank you so much. Like, just to add to, like, when you appeal to the audience and to all the listeners who might be listening now or probably at a later point of time they see this podcast, is just a simple question like, how many of us are aware that there was a SSA data breach a few days back? What measure did we go onto the SSA website and see was our data compromised? Did we go on to the social security and our data and kind of lock our data for the possible breach? Let's like assess ourselves. If we did not do that, then probably we are not contributing to being cyber secure as well. And to the providers and to the healthcare systems, we as an organization, we when we implement like my organization, when we implement these digital transformation measures, along with comes the security measures as well, we always tell them like, uh, give a chance, as you rightly mentioned, rope in the experts. So that's what we tell them, like, give the chance to the experts. You have been working on the legacy system for last many years, but you need to bring in the people who know the latest technology, who are aware of what's happening in the real time world. And since you touched about AI, we are already 5 minutes over time. I will like to touch upon briefly. Will in the next podcast, although the subject is different, I'll disclose the topic of the next podcast as well. But if with your permission, sort of just for 10 minutes initially, we'll touch upon the AI-driven cybersecurity measures, the proactive measures in detection of potential cybersecurity threats, and we'll also talk about the perspective of the cyber criminals, how they are also leveraging AI to hack into the systems, to breach the the cyber security fortress or the cyber walls across the healthcare organizations or the healthcare digital systems. So with that, I'll leave here. And for the patient, for the audience, I'm sorry, I keep, because we've been go so much into healthcare, I keep the word saying patients here. So for the audience, all these things which we discuss, multiple aspects, they have been baked into as form of research papers, white papers into our IJGIS research, the IJGIS publication. The website is called iggs.pubpub.org. And I'll request everyone to also go on to the newworld.foundation. Go and there, check out what exactly is this. I'll also put into the comments when the podcast video is published onto the various platforms. I'll put in the links of these two portals as well. Go there and just get an idea. And in the next topic, next podcast, we will see how we, from our perspective, we are driving the innovation, and what's the mission and impact of TNWF and IGGS, not only to kind of drive point for the about the digital security, digital transformation, innovation, technology based innovation, bringing in science, the application of science into humanity, the usability factor, the reliability factor, building the patient, the building the trust across users, not only in healthcare setup but across industry domains, across technology platform, integration of all of them. We'll talk all about that in our next podcast with our president of the TNWF, Mr. Saurav Bhattacharya, the editor in chief for the IJGS. So I'll request everyone, please, again, next Friday, same time, we will connect on this topic. The title, exact title of the topic is Driving Innovation, the Mission and Impact of TNWF and IJGS. Sort of, thank you so much for your time. Really
Thank you,
enlightening
everyone.
session. I enjoyed the session. I know it's 7 minutes over the session, but I didn't even realize. I hope
I
our
enjoyed
audience.
a lot.
Hopefully, we'll have a very wonderful and more enlightening and engaging session the next Friday around as well. So till then, talk to you again, and we'll continue working on the things which we do regularly.